Okay, and we are live, folks. Thank you for tuning in. I am with my friend Patrick Walters from Summerville, South Carolina, Bassmaster Elite Series angler. You might know him from being a former U of South Carolina grad, won the Winyah Bay event, Carhartt College Bassmaster, with 30 tournament appearances, one in the Classic, two first place finishes, 8 in the top 10, and in the money 23 out of his 30 times. Patrick Walters, how you doing today, brother?
Man, I am doing good, Dom. Thank you for having me. Heck of an intro. Man, you killed it.
Hey,
I'm happy to be here.
I'm working on it. Thank you. Gamecocks graduate.
Yes, sir. Go Cox, baby.
A lot of people don't know this aspect about me when it comes to who I am in professional fishing. I say professional really loosely. I work on the media side of things. I do a lot of writing, and I'm getting the videos in the YouTube channel off the ground more and more as the days go on. But in my work outside of fishing, I am a cognitive psychologist. I measure the amount of electricity between different lobes of the brain, and I study psychology at the University of Detroit Mercy, and I'm working my way towards getting a PhD. What did you study at South Carolina?
Business management and marketing. It sounds way less sophisticated after you follow up the psychology. And I wanted to go to school basically to fish. You know, I knew probably about junior year high school that I wanted to make a run at professional fishing, and I know it's a business. So I figured if I went to the University of South Carolina, I had to. My mom was making me go to school, which it turns out it all worked out in favor. But fishing is a business. You have to manage yourself, and you have to market yourself all the time. You have to find these sponsors. You have to stay in front of them, and you have to be presentable. You don't have to go to school to do that, but it really helps to learn the business logistics of it and the lingo a lot. And that's really what helps the backside of fishing. You know, there's a lot of behind the scenes in the footwork to be able to fish full time. That's what I'm doing right now. Currently not fishing right now. We're got a little off season going on, but to be able to get all the sponsors, you got to make sure you make smart business decisions.
Absolutely. A lot of people don't know what goes into sponsorships. A lot of people ask me if I have any sponsors. I don't, just because I'm not a tournament angler. My approach to fishing, I want to write about fishing, and I've got a passion for bass and catfish especially, but there's a lot more to professional fishing than what meets the eye. You know, when you got your 5 and you're going to go see our friend Dave Mercer on the stage, that's what a lot of people see and think what fishing is. There's a lot more to it, especially like you were saying on the professional side, getting sponsorships and, you know, making yourself presentable and being appropriate. You know, with the age of the internet, you can't say anything you really want anymore because you have sponsors, and there are many aspects to it a lot of people are unaware of. And you probably know better than I do. Yeah,
you always have to be politically correct because you don't want to offend anybody ever. And I mean, it's no need to step on anybody's toes, but truly the behind the scenes of just getting to the tournament, like you said, of catching those 5 fish and going to see Dave Mercer, it's just to even get to the tournament of in the $40,000 in lodging, the travel expenses, the all 8 tournaments, and I fished the opens as well. So fishing those entry fees, travel. That's why I camp, because you do save a good bit of money. You're staying in your own bed. You got your own sheets. You're cooking your own food, so you're saving that. You're not eating out a bunch of just those kind of travel expenses. It adds up, and you have to be able to kind of plan ahead to make sure it doesn't catch you off your toes.
Yeah, and even the off-season maintenance. You know, you got to take care of that trailer. That engine has to be, you know, tip-top shape. I'm sure you probably have a mechanic you send your stuff to, but, you know, I'm sure in the past, you know, it's something you got to take into consideration. Oil your wheel bearings, make sure your lights are all good. A lot.
I do all that myself. I change my oil. I actually get Yamaha to send me a PM kit. That way, whenever I get after 10 hours, I can change my oil. Once I get to 100 hours, I change the oil again, change the fuel filter. After a couple hundred, like 100, 150 hours, I'll change the spark plugs. We actually my family owns an automotive repair shop. So we do all the wheels, we do the wheel bearings and everything. Because I'm telling you, that is the most frustrating thing is when you are on the road and your bearing goes out.
we've almost tipped over. It wasn't my boat, it wasn't my trailer, but I've seen bearings so
It's a good
shot
situation to be
before.
in.
I've seen the bearings so shot before. They welded themselves onto the axle, and the tires were cockeyed off of the right side of the boat. And this is a 26-foot, Great Lakes salmon fishing boat. I thought we were going to spill it all over the parking lot, but we learned how to replace an axle that day. It's definitely something interesting.
Routine maintenance definitely goes a long way.
Oh, absolutely. And something you said a few moments ago, the driving. How I've never driven a boat on a trailer a very far distance like you probably have.
It's about 30,000 miles a year, probably between 25 to 30,000 to where you live, pulling a trailer. And honestly, you get so used to it when you stop towing and you unhook the bass boat. You keep looking in the mirror, looking for the boat, looking for the trailer. Make sure you're clear. You kind of get addicted to it. I mean, I love traveling. I love being on the road. And it's kind of when that boat's not there, it's like you're missing a piece of you. You know you're not going to the lake. So it's kind of like,
what am I doing with my day,
Exactly. It's like, well, I know I'm not going fishing. I don't see the boat behind me. It's one of those things, when it's behind you, it's going to be a good day, regardless.
I love hearing that. Oh, that is just awesome. So you said 25 to 30,000 miles a year.
A year.
Roughly when you were traveling towards an event, how many hours do you generally look at in one way for most of your stuff? If you were to average it all together.
If I was to average it, I'd probably say 12 hours, probably 10 to 12. In the South, I live in South Carolina, so I'm pretty close to all the Southern tournaments. I'm usually within about 6 to 7 hours of all those, but then we go up north and I'm 12 to 17 from those. I've gone up to 24, went to Minnesota a couple times. Oklahoma's a good ways out there, but I'd say on average 10 to 12 hours.
It's a good thing Bassmaster doesn't really go out west like they used to. It seems like all the anglers are, for the most part, South Carolina, Arkansas, Eastern United States. If everybody had to make that 20+ hour drive at least out to California, oh my goodness, I'd be fried.
I would love. I'm dying to make the trip to California. I do feel sorry for those guys who live in California because every single tournament they have to come to the East Coast. Mm-hmm. But the schedule last year, the schedule was a California tournament, one on the California Delta, and then one on the Columbia River in Washington. And I was looking forward to it. I love to travel and see new places, but that adds about an extra 15 to 20. $5,000. That would probably be an expense.
Wow.
To make it out west.
Jeez, Pete, it's such a fiscal commitment, and it would be so cool to see, a battle out on Clear Lake or,
absolutely
Havasu or whatever. But it's just logistically challenging for many anglers. Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. I'm a little thirsty. I'm sorry about that. How's the weather down there?
It's all good.
How's the weather down there in South Carolina?
The weather is great right now. 2 days ago, we had a tornado come through. It actually tore up to 160 miles across the state of South Carolina. But right now, it's about 70 degrees. I think I got some yard work calling my name in a little bit, sadly. But I'm going to be fishing probably tomorrow afternoon and Thursday, probably Friday, probably Saturday and Sunday. So got to get it done at some point.
That's exciting. Let me check the actual weather for me right now in Southeast Michigan. It is 40 and cloudy.
Oh, wow. I was just about to ask, where are you located?
Okay, so I saw you at the Lake St. Clair event.
Yep.
Last October, right? It was early October.
Maybe September, early September. Or I can pull it up.
It might have been early October, late September. I remember it was really hot for that time of year.
Oh, it was hot, yeah.
Holy cow, it was sweltering. I go to university not too far from there. I'm I'm a young fisherman. I kind of live out of my car, but I would say Southeast Michigan, Detroit. But I'm at my parents' house right now. It's an hour north of Detroit.
Okay.
So
What's the deal right now with with no boats, with no motorboats? I mean, who even calls them motorboats? First of all, when I read that, I just kind of laughed. I was boats with a motor.
It's okay if you canoe, kayak, paddleboard, a paddle boat. You can get on the water. It just can't have an engine on it. And that was a part of the recent executive order from Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I think it's asinine. No better way to put it. I've seen Mark Zona's video. But another thing I liked about what Mark Zona said when he was urging Michigan residents to call her was that he said, this is about our rights. This isn't about us going fishing right 100%. Now. Because the Detroit River and Lake Erie, they are powerhouse walleye fisheries. And I just wanted to go jig for, a little bit, go see if I can get a big one. I'll go out a couple times here and there a year. But this year I said it was a wash because I don't want to go back down into the city, into, an environment that's crawling with COVID-19 cases, for walleye fishing that might be mediocre. Sometimes it's hard to predict, and it's the Great Lakes. It can, if it's a little windy, it might snow, it might get too muddy. Last year I went and the water was straight mud. It had maybe an inch of visibility.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's what I've been reading on that, and I saw Mark's video and everything, and I hope it's getting good response that a lot of people are calling the governor because, I mean, like you said, it makes sense from both sides. You don't want to. Here in South Carolina, we're at stay-at-home orders right now, where they closed all the public boat landings, but because people were going out there and they were kind of partying. I mean, the weather's been that good that they were all kind of rafting up, and there were 50 boats at a sandbar, and that's where it kind of got everybody in trouble. It was just a little excessive.
Yeah. So the week before things started really coming down with the hammer, I was on spring break and I don't have Monday or Tuesday classes. So I stayed home. And on Wednesday, I was getting notifications that Michigan State was closed for the rest of the semester. Then it was Michigan. Then it was Michigan Tech, and then it was Western and Central and Eastern. And I'm like a little kid on the morning of a snow day, like, come on, Detroit. But I didn't think it would last this long. I thought we would get like 2 or 3 weeks off and I'd be back because my finals are next week and I can't get anything done around the house. It's an interesting time to be alive.
I was the same way in college. It was like any little thing that went on, it was like, gosh, please cancel school. Like a snowstorm would come in, and here in the South, a snowstorm comes in, that's pretty bad. And we'd get like one day off, and it was like, whoo. And that's kind of what this comes in, and you're like, oh, we'll get a couple days off. We'll get this week off. But truly, I don't think anybody expected it to be this long. The extent of it to kind of carry out. And like you said, when I was in school, I had to go to the library to get stuff done. I couldn't study at my house, couldn't do any of that. It was I had to go somewhere and actually sit down and like immerse yourself in the environment. And it was half the time I was carrying actually a box of jig skirts and I was tying skirts. So I did a lot of Google Earth research in that library, I can promise you.
Yeah, I have so much fishing tackle left in my apartment on campus. And I've got a lot of stuff, but I know I left a lot back there along with my clothes and other stuff. I haven't even moved out yet. They said, well, the Wednesday when all the other schools were closing, I lollygagged. I took my time getting back to school because I didn't want to drive an hour and a half and be told to go right back home. Yeah. Well, I missed my first class in the afternoon, but I had 2 classes taught by the same person, so it was no big deal. And I got to the later class at night, and we were in there 15 minutes, and we all get this email saying, hey, get your stuff and get out for the most part.
Good gosh.
So hauled back home that night, and then the next day, I went hiking up in northern Michigan in the Manistee National Forest, do a little trout and steelhead fishing, but I couldn't get a spot anywhere. The river was loaded with people. Other schools closed. People had already been being dismissed from work. I just sat there and watched everybody fish. But that site on the Big Manistee River was the first, I believe, of DNR property to close because people weren't following social distancing.
Exactly.
And like you said,
that's what happened. It was just they didn't follow the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy that something that simple, I mean, can just change the entire state and how everybody lives. It kind of gives you a close look of what other countries kind of have and how we take a lot of things for granted. Where we used to just travel freely as much as we wanted to. We could get us plenty of toilet paper and beef whenever, it was just, we're doing it wherever we want. And now it got limited and things are in kind of high demand. It opens a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah. I've done a lot of traveling before. I've spent some time in Ireland and England, and then later that summer I taught English in southern China.
Oh wow.
And people are like,
"Oh, buzzbait,"
just playing along with it.
Oh, it is a buzzbait.
Good ears, my man. Good ears.
All right.
But
live and breathe it.
I was explaining to my family how we come from such a place of privilege where we even have toilet paper.
Exactly.
And I tell people, what we have in America, these are called Western toilets, and they're like, well, what do you mean? Aren't all toilets the same? No, a Western toilet is one you sit on. In China and a lot of other places in Asia, to my understanding, they use squat toilets where you take everything off and you just squat over top of this trench like a frog and do your business.
Seems sanitary.
It's interesting. I never thought life would be like this, but we'll get through it. We always do.
One day at a time. Mm-hmm. That's all we can do.
Now let's do a little bass fishing talk. Is that okay? You like to bass fish, right?
Oh, 100%. Live and breathe it. When I go to sleep, I'm thinking about it. When I wake up, it's the first thing on my mind usually.
Do you have any other species you fish for?
I fish for about everything. I grew up saltwater fishing, inshore and offshore, and just kind of the love for fishing in the outdoors. And then I fished my first bass tournament, I think in like 6th or 7th grade with a buddy of mine who we duck hunted with. And I fished that first tournament, and just kind of growing up being competitive, was not good at basketball. So fishing was, I really loved to fish.
Yeah, and, I was terrible at basketball.
Oh, horrible. I'm telling you, it's like, if you can imagine somebody who's pretty bad at basketball, it's like I'm right here, just pretty far down there. But mixing in that competitiveness and fishing at the same time, being outdoors, you get to spend time like with people you care about. Like my team partner is my dad, who's I fish everything with, and it's when you get to spend that time with him. I mean, we hunted a lot. You're not really spending time with somebody when you're hunting. You're quiet, you're in different stands. But fishing, just that competitiveness, the smell of those 2-stroke motors at blast off. I mean, it was like straight braid. It just got you fired up.
And it's the experience. It's not really sleeping much the night before. It's getting to your friend's house at some ungodly early hour. It's, knowing what gas station you're going to. It's, eating food on the way there, and, the sun's just coming up and you're already fishing. It's an experience. I tell people if you've never been fishing, you should try to go. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Especially if you've never fished a tournament. It's one of those things you kind of have to experience it to know what the rush is about. A lot of people watch tournament fishing, they don't know what that's about. But then when you realize the hype and kind of the emotions that go into it, it's amazing.
It's so much more competitive than people believe it is.
Absolutely.
Oh, I know a lot of guys, they say, I bet you I can go out into the Bassmaster Opens and compete. I know this lake really well. But the kicker is this field is made out of studs. These are fantastic anglers that are chipping away at a spot, for a chance to fish for, the Bassmaster Classic title. We've all got that in mind. There's definitely a competitive edge. I think I'm looking into perhaps being a co-angler in the future. I'm focusing on my transition into graduate school right now. So, I got that to, worry about. And then maybe when I'm a professor or something someday, I can get a nice rig and really get in a computer.
Go ahead. Well, yeah, I definitely jump in into a open as a co-angler if you can, whether it's a close one or you just kind of pick and choose. But like you said, the competition in the opens, I think it's more fierce than the elite sometimes because you have 100 anglers or show up at a dream they have lived for to fish as a purpose. So you're telling me one against one, and you're going to knock this man's dreams down, everything he's lived for? It's competitive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's truly, it's everybody's putting their heart and soul into it. It makes it that much more enjoyable. It really does.
That's excellent. Now you're 26?
Shoot, that's a good question. I think I'm 25 actually. So
okay.
25.
Okay, yeah. So I know your birthday is in August.
Yep, August 30th.
That's
94.
Okay. That's what I thought. See, I was born in December of 94.
Okay.
So what's it like to be, pretty young fishing professional Bassmaster Elite Series?
Tell you the truth, I feel like it allows you to plan for the future. I want to fish forever. I want to fish till I retire, but I'm in it for the long term. I don't want to do anything for a short-term game. I don't want to fish for 1 year. I don't want to fish for 2 years. I want to fish for 30 years, and I want to make a career out of it and do as long as possible and set career milestones is really what I'm going for.
And bass fishing has changed so much in the recent 3 years. I don't need to tell you that, but right now, whatever circuit people are a part of, there needs to be, generational pioneers who get bass fishing to where they want it to be or how they conceptualize it, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I've been talking with a couple of buddies of mine. I'm good buddies with Garrett Paquette, with Drew Cook, with a lot of the Skylar Hamilton, Mike Huff, all those guys, Brandon Cobb, Shane LaHue, the younger generation. And I was just talking with them, and it's like, guys, we are the younger generation right now, and we can set the bar and kind of go with it wherever we want to go. If we wanted to completely quit social media and say, hey, if you partake in social media, you're not going to be a professional fisherman. You could do that. It wouldn't work out, I can promise you, because it would take a darnter. But I mean, you can set trends and everything, and that's the kind of where we're at now. But it's to set trends for conservation, to better the sport, and to get the youth in it, to really kind of bring everything together. And tell you the truth, I support everybody who fishes, whether you fish FLW, whether you fish MLF, whether you fish bass, whether you fish your weekend stuff. It's all the same sport. I don't care which division you fish. I feel like if we all come together, then it betters everybody. I feel like there's enough room for 300 and plus people to fish professionally. If you got rid of one association and you only had two, then it's such a tight funnel to the top that it makes it that much harder, and it kind of hurts the industry. It kind of just squeezes it. I feel like there's plenty of room for everybody to thrive too. It's just we all got to work together and find that common ground.
Yeah, and in a sense, it's very similar to how professional sports are laid out.
Absolutely.
We can't only have, for example, 5 NFL teams. You know how hard it would be for people to make the NFL if the competition was that much higher. No, it's a very good point. Absolutely. But between you and I prefer the 5-fish Bassmaster format. I'll watch anybody though. I like bass fishing, but my heart bleeds blue for Bassmaster.
I'm with you. I'm tried and true of weighing them in. I've talked to some buddies, and it's you want to have kids one day, and your kids and your grandkids show up to the tournament and see you holding up fish, see you holding up your best 5 at the end of the day. I mean, that really means something. I mean, exactly. You're bringing them in. It's just that confidence. You got the biggest 5 that day out of anybody means everything. I love them. I watch MLF. I watch FLW because I love the sport of bass fishing, and you have to always better yourself. So
absolutely,
any way you can learn, you have to take advantage of that. But tried and true, bringing in 5. Big bass, big stage, big dreams.
So what is it like to get called out onto stage and you got these bucket mouths in hand and people are hamming you up? What is that experience like?
tell you the truth, you kind of black out a little bit. I mean,
Okay.
it's kind of what I feel like I have lived for, because public speaking, I don't like it. I don't like getting in front of a room in front of 20 people and telling them a story that I've said 1,000 times. But I can get up on that stage, and if I've got fish in my hand, I can get in front of 3 million people. And I don't care if I'm singing Cotton Eye Joe or something, you're proud to do it. When you got those fish, it's just your hair just stands up on the back of your neck. Get them goosebumps like that.
Mm-hmm.
Woo!
See,
bringing them fish in.
My favorite place to hang out at, whenever Bassmaster comes to town, I'll go out and see everybody walking on the stage here and there, but I like to watch you anglers at the tanks behind the stage, because you can read a lot of emotion on just a couple of faces back there.
And that's how it's been the last 2 years. This last year and a little bit of this year, since it's only been a little bit, is the camaraderie between the guys has really gone up. Everybody's friends, everybody's talking, everybody's socializing. Mm-hmm. Every tournament, every single day, somebody's going to have a bad day. Somebody's going to lose that fish that they needed. Somebody's going to have the best day they've ever had. And you can see that mix, and everybody kind of brings each other together. Everybody's boosting each other. It's bass fishing. That's what you live for, is getting back in there, getting in them tanks, talking, doing a little trash talking around that much fish. It's good to be around. I mean, it's hard to say it's fish in general, man. It makes life good.
I have noticed that the camaraderie seems to make it the place to be a part of. I can definitely acknowledge that. I've taken some really good pictures of the guys at the tanks talking back and forth, and they've got these funny expressions on their face, and who's doing well, who isn't. And then after they weigh in, they'll just go sit in the crowd with everybody else. And I haven't seen that before in other tournaments, in the past at least. But it must be a spectacular feeling to be a part of the Elite Series.
It really is. And you got to get back. I mean, it's all about the fans. Mm-hmm. Without the fans, we wouldn't be here. Because, I mean, who wants to watch a professional fisherman? It's like basketball, NFL, anything. The fans are everything. That's who you're selling yourself to. You have to support them because they support you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's exactly the same thing with what you and I are doing right now, from a professional angler as yourself to someone who works on the media side of things. Like, I want to help you build your career while also taking this material and putting it online for somebody to see someday and say, remember that Patrick Walters guy who won the Classic? Well, he did an interview a couple years ago with that one Dominic fella. We all have our place in the fishing community, and it's definitely all about conservation, making sure that the ecosystems thrive for the next generation to be a part of. And we can, limit man-made impressions on certain bodies of water. A lot of people don't understand that, a body of water can change significantly in just a generation.
It changes yearly. It truly does. So in a generation, it's almost unrecognizable.
Lake St. Clair used to be a predominant largemouth fishery.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. But with the commercial shipping on the Great Lakes and the invasive species, over time, the zebra mussels cleared up the water tremendously. So it's very clear in a lot of places on the Great Lakes now where it used to not be. And also, we have gobies, and these smallmouth love eating gobies.
Dom, what is your biggest largemouth you've ever caught on St. Clair? Or what's the biggest largemouth you've ever heard of being caught on St. Clair?
Oh, goodness.
That you've heard of somebody talking about. Not a lake record. Just you've been like, man, you caught a 6-pounder out there? I caught one there in practice.
It's probably about 6.5, I guess.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, you got to see this picture. You're gonna lose, Dom. You're gonna lose your mind. You're not even gonna believe me.
I know. I do have a good friend who scuba dives out there, and he claims he saw a stud.
Oh, wow.
Something that he said was definitely over 7, but I wasn't there with him. He's into he free dives, and he shoots a harpoon gun at rough fish like carp and sheephead and stuff like that. Yeah, and he told me he saw a largemouth that was well over 7 on the north end of the lake.
I caught it on the north end of the lake.
Okay.
I'm getting close to it now. Oh, you're gonna lose it. Take a guess.
7 1/4.
That's darn close.
Oh my gosh.
Can you see it?
Oh my gosh.
That's past 18 inches.
Oh yeah.
She was 728, I think,
Goodness gracious.
on St. Clair.
Now what did you catch it on?
A waggy worm.
Oh, really?
Get this. I went into a canal. It had a bunch of wild rice in there, and I was throwing a frog. Had a couple that were kind of just hitting at it, kind of missing it. But they were like pounders. I'm telling you, it was crazy. I'm going down the ditch, and I caught like 3 or 4, and I'm like, man, this place freaking got them. And I missed one, missed another one, and I'm like, I want to see how big these fish are. Let me pull out old Facebook. I got 7 pull fish on a whack than probably anything else. Bro, the fish get up shallow and they're pressured. That's about the only thing you can effectively catch them. When they get up there and they're dumb, you can catch them on a turd wrapped in aluminum foil.
Yeah.
But I threw that day. First cast with old wacky was a Zoom green pumpkin fluke stick. Just think. I was like, dang, this one's actually pretty good. And 724. I actually got a video of me fighting this thing in the wild rice. I might give you a little tidbit. I don't know how good the audio is here or the camera. Let's see if I can go back in.
So I have a general idea on roughly. This is an extreme rough guesstimate here, but I have an idea where you were throwing that bait, and I love throwing the wacky rig. It's just ooh. I do a lot of drop shotting on St. Clair. I threw the Ned rig a lot last year. I cranked, and I got some work done with the spinner bait.
Really?
But I only
that's a good place.
I only got out probably 4 times last year.
Gosh, you better get out there more.
I know. I fish a lot though.
I don't have I thought I had a video of me fighting it. But she was 728. Yep. Unreal.
Oh my god.
I couldn't believe it. I called my buddy Garrett Paquette, who fished in the Elite Series as well.
He doesn't live that far from me.
No, he doesn't. He lives right there, something with a C, I think. I can't remember the name of it. Canton. There you go.
Yep.
And I called him and said, Garrett, what's the biggest largemouth you've ever caught out here or in the state of Michigan? He was like, 6.5. And I was like, do what? And I'd sent him that thing. He was mad at me for 2 months. I think he's probably still mad at me.
Oh my goodness.
And then I went largemouth fishing the first day of the tournament and caught like 12 pounds.
And that's how the lake goes.
When you're in smallmouth country, you better smallmouth fish. I learned that lesson the hard way.
Now, I recall, I believe it was 2015, or maybe it was the Elite Series event after that on St. Clair, where Skylar Hamilton, if he wasn't leading at the end of day one, he was in the top 3 at the end of day one because he was largemouth fishing with a frog towards the Indian reservation in the grass. And
that's about where I was at. It was up there.
You can get some nice largemouth up there, but the smallmouth out there, it's just
fantastic. They're unreal. I mean, we all know they're fantastic because we've seen that little bit of footage of Seth. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had no idea there was that many big ones out there. That dude, I mean, talk about opening people's eyes. He opened up my eyes. It's just, God, yeah. That's when you knew you should not have fished for largemouth.
You live and you learn. You live and you learn.
Do.
That's do you have, outside of St. Clair, what are some of your other favorite fisheries?
Santee Cooper, my home lake's probably my favorite, just because it's so fertile and rich environment. I mean, I've caught 2 10-pounders out of there. It takes right now from January to now 30 pounds to win every single tournament, and they're not even Florida strain. They're northern strain. 16,000 acres, huge. Mm-hmm. But I love the Tennessee River. I love the way it sets up. It's a fish factory. Guntersville has actually been mean to me the last 2 times. Guntersville is probably one of my favorites, and it's getting me. So Guntersville owes me one. So I'm looking to get back at Gville. Up north, I really love Oneida. Oneida is probably one of my favorite lakes up there for some reason. I don't know why. Me and Oneida, we just kind of mesh. It's a shallow smallmouth fishery, and I'm looking forward to getting back up there for that one.
I would like to check that lake out someday, and the St. Lawrence. There's some big old smallmouth up there.
I caught my deepest fish that I've ever caught on the bottom, where the bait was on the bottom dragging. And when I caught this thing on the St. Lawrence last year, 72 feet of water. 72. I swear to God, blew my mind. I couldn't even believe it. I've never, growing up on Santee, I didn't think a bass could live deeper than 15 foot of water. It was like, oh no, they don't go that deep. And just starting to travel around and fishing, you just kind of learn how fish do, how deep they'll go. But 72 feet of water on the bottom, it just blew me away. It was about a pounder. It wasn't a big one. There on the St. Lawrence, you have to fish 35 and less to catch big fish. Mm-hmm. After you get past 35, the big ones don't go there really.
Now, when you hook one that deep, for instance, when you brought that one up to the boat, did its swim bladder protrude out of its mouth, or?
That one didn't per se, but a couple of them did. Like if you catch a perch that deep, it definitely does. That one, you could feel how firm the sides of it get. And actually, we took a fizzing class for that tournament. St. Lawrence. Barb was her first name. I mean, this woman, she was on point. She was our conservationist. She had willow leaf earrings, and her name was Barb, like a barb on a hook. And I'm like, this woman's perfect. And she taught all the elites. We had a mandatory fizzing class, and everybody fizzed the fish. That was the first, because I've never really fished deep, so that was the first time we all fizzed them. Mm-hmm. And we had a great catch release ratio. I think we were released like 99%, which for smallmouth deep it was amazing.
Oh, that is really good. Do you know what kind of needle they used for that?
It was I don't know the exact needle. It's like an epidermic needle or something, but it's actually got a reamer, and it's a needle. It's a hollow needle. I don't know what gauge it is. Like if I said a gauge, it'd be lying. But it's not like a whole long needle. It's just a little short needle. But it comes with a metal reamer that goes through it that you can tap it. That way, it's a little metal rod that goes inside the needle. Mm-hmm. That way, when the reamer's out, when you poke it into the fish's air bladder and you turn it up, a lot of times when you poke it in there, it gets a piece of meat or a scale into the needle itself. And so it's not cleared out. And so you think you're fizzing it, but you're not. So you stick that reamer in there and you tap it, and it clears the needle, and then every time. So the reamer is the ticket.
I gotta look into that more. I don't get the chance to fish them super deep that often. I do most of my bass fishing. Well, I do all of it in Michigan. Obviously, I'm hoping to get out to northern Wisconsin, go see my friend Travis. He does a lot of largemouth fishing out there. I'm hoping to get on St. Clair a few more times this year. Saginaw Bay on Lake Huron is a fantastic smallmouth fishery.
Really?
If you ever get the chance to fish it, it's incredibly slept on, and you could definitely have a tournament out there. Just I think logistically there wouldn't be a place to like host the weigh-in, and I don't know how many people would be really crazy about a very popular body of water being plagued by walleye boats and pleasure boaters, but throw the Bassmaster guys on top of it. It just doesn't work out some days. But I fished Okeechobee a few years ago.
That place is a different animal, and when you come out of there and you break the grass line. I can remember my first time going there. Like honest to God, when I broke that first grass line and went into the lake, I was like, where do you start? I mean, you just start riding down the grass line and you're like,
you're just looking around.
And everybody's like, just go find grass. And you're like, the whole thing's grass. And then they're like, find clear water. And it's like, what is considered clear? I didn't know what dirty and clear was.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah. I was at Roland Martin's Marina there. And we launched out of there and I didn't catch anything. It was just so different. I didn't really know how to flip and pitch. But when I got home, I certainly learned how to do it. So if I ever get the chance to head back there, I have an idea what I'm going to do. I've been, fishing super heavy cover up here in Michigan while I can, because I would love to go back to the Big O and, sink a hook into maybe a 10-pounder if I'm lucky someday. But it's a different animal. The
It really
pelican,
is.
the grass, the water.
Oh, the tannic, how dark the water is. But truly, when you're fishing in Florida, especially Okeechobee, you don't need a full arsenal of tackle. Every now and then you need a trap, but that's like very so often. You need a punch rig, a big 1 ounce, or a jig, something for flip and cover, a stick bait, whether it's a Senko, a Zoom fluke stick, a Slinky, something in black and blue, and June bug, and a swim bait, like a Big Easy, a Zoom Z swim, some kind of swim bait, whether it's a swim bait or a swim jig, something to cover a lot of water, straight braid, 50 to 65-pound braid, where you can really bomb it, fish it on the surface. I actually throw a Zoom Magnum Speedworm a lot of times, and I'll rig it with a paycheck head, it's a weightless bullet, like a bullet weight, but it's plastic and it's clear and it's a screw in. That way, when you rig your hook into the worm, when you hit all that sawgrass, it doesn't slide your worm down your hook. It just kind of comes straight through there, keeps it streamlined, and you reel it like a buzz bait. Oh my gosh. You don't know a strike until you've seen one eat a Magnum Speedworm off the surface.
Oh man, that would be
cover
awesome.
Water. Those three things, basically a flipping bait, a stick bait, and a swim bait or something to cover some water. You're in business.
Oh man, hopefully someday I can get back down there, and hopefully someday I can get down to South Carolina and fish the Santee Cooper.
Come on.
I told you earlier I'd like to, get a real big blue catfish out of there, but I know it's a premier bass fishery too.
It is. And the last couple of years, it's gotten extremely known for the catfish in there. And tell you the truth, I have catfished very little there of like targeting them. I've caught some big ones. I mean, I've caught some 30, 40s. My dad caught a 55-pound one time, but we were all bass fishing. I've never targeted them for some reason. I guess you just get so caught up bass fishing, it's hard to.
And I can totally understand that. A lot of people, you have to be into it to be into it. I don't blame most people for not really paying much attention to it, but it's it keeps me busy. I enjoy it. It puts a new perspective on things. As far as understanding temperature and what fish are feeding on, and generally their activity.
Well, I've got a quick question for you. I don't know how much you know about catfishing. What is the average depth a catfish lives at? I guess it depends on the body of water, but do they spend most of their life shallow, deep? What? I don't know how they transition. I'm just curious.
Oh, well, when the water's really cold, so up here in Michigan, we don't have the big blue catfish. We have channel catfish, and we also have flatheads. Well, when the water is really cold, they'll retreat into their holes and just stay into a hole,
Gotcha.
And, hole and depth, when we're talking about fishing, they're all relative terms. If the entire lake is on average 15 foot, but there's a 25-foot pocket, with or without current, when that water's cold, they're going to be hanging out in there. And then once things start, picking up, when the ice was getting blown off the lake, I was catching them from shore, casting into the shallow areas where the water was just a couple of degrees warmer because it was a sandy bottom and the sun was, nice and bright for the past couple of days. So, the water temperature makes a big difference. In the summertime, fishing around structure, they'll hang out in timber around stumps. But then when nighttime comes, it's hammer time because they'll come out of the cover, they'll come out of their holes, and they'll just cruise the shallows. They'll find themselves out in the flats looking for bait fish or anything to gorge themselves on.
What's their main forage, you think?
When they're really small, like I ate one the other day just because I really wanted to see what the juveniles were eating. They were eating crayfish and dragonfly larvae.
Oh, really?
When they're relatively small, they'll eat algae, they'll eat bugs, they'll eat the stuff they can get off the bottom. But once they get so big, they have to eat something worth their time.
Absolutely.
So that's why
I've seen them eat a lot of big brim. Like they'll devastate a brim bed down here, shad, all that stuff. Like a lot of times you'll see during the wintertime here, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, there'll be huge flocks of cormorants and loons kind of like in the middle of the lake, and they'll be just kind of following balls of shad, and they'll just be going through there killing the shad, and the catfish just kind of follow the large schools and just eat everything that's falling down.
Oh, yeah.
Everything that's just not getting caught.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we follow the birds on St. Clair quite a bit when we did you catch any silver bass or white bass when you were up here?
I don't think I did. No, I don't think I did for some reason.
Okay.
They must have. I would probably wouldn't fish in the river or something where the white bass were running.
Yeah, they come through by the hundreds, and all you got to do is, you know, look in the air. Generally speaking, where the birds are, they're chasing the minnows, and right behind them, you know, well over 100 sometimes can be in a school, just, you know,
Oh wow,
ready to smash anything. You can catch them on, you know, yarn and a jig head. They're super ferocious critters. That's good stuff, man. I really hope this coronavirus stuff comes to an end sometime soon, because I would like to see everything get back to normal, and I would like to see you especially get back to fishing.
I'm telling you, I'm ready to get back at it. I do see some there. It will get back to normal eventually. I don't know how much time we have, and that's the one thing that kind of has been bugging me. Is I like everything kind of be planned out, where I want it set in stone. I want, hey, May 3rd, we're back to normal, but there's no set date that we will get back to normal. It's going to take some time. It'll be 2 months before we get closer to some kind of normalcy, but it'll probably be a year before everything's 100% back the way it was. I've heard people talking about 2 years. I think it's kind of opened a lot of people's eyes, and people are going to be more cautious about things, and more precautions are going to come up. But I think in a couple months, it'll be time to get back on it and hit the grindstone and get fishing.
Well, I'm hoping to see you on Lake St. Clair later this year, my man.
Hopefully I'm going to be there. I'm looking forward to it. I really love St. Clair. It's a different fishery. It's got best of both worlds. I'm excited to go focus on the smallmouth this time and not kind of divide my time, because smallmouth's how you win. And I do love catching them. That's my pride and joy. Fishing for largemouth. That's what I love. But when in Rome, you got to fish for the brown ones.
I totally get it. A couple of years ago, I'll leave you on this story. I know you and I both got to go get some yard work done here. I asked Rick Clunn several years ago, "Oh, hey, Mr. Clunn, it's so good to see you. How are you enjoying the fishery?" And he kind of gave me this straight look, and he didn't move his mouth that much, and he just said, "I hate smallmouth." And I'm like, I understand.
Dang, Rick.
I understand.
That guy's a legend.
Oh, he's a stud. Oh, my goodness.
He's a man. God, he's a hammer.
All right. Well, when you're up here around Metro Detroit, feel free to holler at me. I'd love to take you out to dinner or grab a drink or something sometime. I appreciate you for offering your time to be with me and the guests viewing this video. I'll be sure to tag all of your social media handles in the comment section below, so everybody can follow you and what you've been up to. But it's been great talking to you, man.
Tom, I really enjoyed it. Anytime you want to call and chat and you want to catch up, hey, just call me. And if you want to come to Santee and you want to do some catfishing, I'm always down. I'm always like trying new things.
Okay. Maybe you can teach me how to catch a real big largemouth.
I think we could handle that one.
All right. This one's for you, Patrick. Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, thanks, Tom. Take care.
Bye-bye.